What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, it is the start of a new week. We have some action over here on the Bitcoin price chart and with the altcoin market. We'll dive into that in the first half of this video. Then the second half of this video will be more of a broader perspective look at the markets. Today, Bitcoin took a shuffle down in price action and has since reclaimed it. Looking over here on the smaller time frames, I have us on the 15-minute chart. We can look over here on Coinbase and see that the price peaked all the way down here to about $39,649. Over on FTX, it dipped down to $39,644. But the chart that we typically use over here is going to be the Bitstamp chart, which is the one that I'm usually using when we're doing these YouTube videos. And we can see that the price of Bitcoin dipped down to $39,558. Now, that is causing a little bit of a stir over there on Twitter because throughout the weekend, I kind of took a guess at what the bottom of the Bitcoin price chart could be. It stated, historically a 42 to 43% drawdown is a good bounce area for Bitcoin. Many are turning bearish on Bitcoin now when the time to turn bearish was in the 60,000s. Picking the bottom for where the retracement rally can begin is difficult, but I'll take a long shot guess at it. 39,557. And we can see we hit 39,558 over there on the Bitstamp chart. Now, I'm not the type of person to really gloat about that stuff, and really I don't actually make those types of price predictions very often. It is just a long shot guess over there based on a few things that I see happening here in the cryptocurrency market. But I will tell you that that guess is based off of this type of structure happening here on Bitcoin right now, and essentially it being something like that right in there. So still expecting a retracement for Bitcoin, and then a longer period of pretty boring price action for Bitcoin. But either way, it hit that price. We'll see what happens from here. If it does end up working out, I need to get my next Swift GIF ready to go. But the reality is I'm not a gloater. I am humbled by the markets. I do know that these markets can wrong foot all the time. And it's still too early to sit here and say that that is the actual price that is going to hold at this point. It did nail it. We'll see how it holds up, but I'll show you all the different things on here on why it's like, okay, yeah, it's really cool that it hit it and all, but it still is dependent upon what the structure of Bitcoin is going to be still. Because what that does right there is it does give us something equivalent to what was going on back in here for this corrective format. And we talked about this in yesterday's video. I've talked about this in other videos before as well. Is that this would be our May sell-off in here. As you know, we came back up above the top of the May sell-off. We pulled back down. We set one new high and we started the fall. That this spot right here, the equivalent for something like that with current price action was 39,557. So that's just going to depend on whether or not that's following the same thing or not. And it essentially makes this area work out as a support level, which was a resistance level back in here and a supportive level back in here as well. But I did do a lot of measuring and on very, very minuscule levels to come up with that 39,557 number. So we'll see. It still has more time to play out, but it's been pretty interesting since then because as we can see at that price level, there was a lot of buy volume that did come in there. So we flip this over to the 30-minute. You can see how much sell volume took us down there and how much buy volume scooped it up just here over on Bitstamp. Scooting over to Coinbase, same story. Lots of sell volume, lots of buy volume. And that's on the 30-minute. If we look at the 1 hour, we can see how big of a buy candle that happened down there. And also looking over there on the 2 hour as well. It's a lot of buy volume that showed up right there at that price level. So we'll see if that ends up holding. We'll see if this can go down in glory as a good tweet or if, eventually things change. But so far, so good. So I'll just kind of tell you the things that go through my head on what I try to do to stay a couple of steps ahead at this point right now. So if this price level does hold, then the thing I'll be looking for, of course, is a retracement to come in and to see what happens with the altcoin market during that time. In the 2017 bull run, 2018 bubble pop for Bitcoin, it was into that retracement where the altcoins, did their magic, right? I've said that 1,000 times on here. You're probably sick of hearing that, but I'm always going to repeat that. That's the thing that I'm going to be watching for heading into the retracement for Bitcoin when the retracement does come. Question is the retracement happening here or not? So if it holds here and we go into the retracement, boom, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not going to sit here saying, hey, maybe things are changing. Maybe we're going to the upside and going crazy. It just revalidates the things that I've been looking for a corrective structure if this does actually actually hold right in here, right? I just showed you a previous structure of what happened in this circumstance where this price level held, it went back into a retracement, and then it turned over on itself and crashed, right? So that's scenario one that's going on in my mind right now. Now I start thinking, okay, well, what are the backups, right? What are the things that could happen differently? Like, let's say that this price level does not hold. Yeah, cool. Lucky guess, gets down there, hits the number, but what if it's wrong, right? Over the last several weeks, we've been pointing over here to this structure over here for Bitcoin back in 2018. So this is what a bearish structure for Bitcoin looked like. This is what we've been doing so far here in late 2021, early 2022, is that we've had a very similar structure for Bitcoin happening here, just this bearish creep down, and that we could see that even in this circumstance, it did dip down a little bit lower. So that's still on my radar for potentially to happen in there, but in the end still does lead to a retracement, right? We can see where the retracement pulled us back up to. That's still going to be right here, this 55, 56, 57, $58,000 price level right here for a retracement if the price does dip down even lower in here. But another chart we've spent a lot of time looking at over here has been the inverse price chart of Bitcoin and seeing the structure that has happened over in here. And so I want to talk about this too, because we need to kind of reiterate the things that typically happen in these types of things if this does end up to be the thing that plays out. So we spent a lot of time looking at this chart during May, June, and July, discussing what crashing structures look like, how there's 7 waves. You guys, if you've been following for at least a week, you've probably heard me talk about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with five waves within wave 5. And then it rolls back up for wave 6 to wave 4 within wave 5, and then we go on and have our final wave that sets the one new high or one new low, depending on how we're looking at this. Since this is an inverse price chart of Bitcoin, as price moves down, you can look on the right side of the screen, the price is actually moving up since everything is upside down. But let's talk about this structure and what typically happens on these things. And I've gone through this before, but I want to talk about it again right now too, is that a lot of times in these scenarios, we do see price pull all the way back up in here, and then there's this long period for a retracement that eventually takes us right back down into here. But that this goes on for a very long time, which, if we're going to see something happen with the altcoin market into a retracement of Bitcoin, that sure buys that altcoin market a lot of time to be able to do something. But guessing time is going to be difficult, but I'm going to show you multiple examples of this because it's something that we have leaned on so heavily on this channel, or I have leaned on so heavily on this channel, to show you what the remaining phases of this are in most circumstances. So while this price area right here is that $39,558 right in here where we just hit this morning, as you can see up here, we're looking much closer to $30,000. This is still a further fall for Bitcoin to get back up into these price levels up in here. So let's look at some other examples. One of them has been the XRP price chart from what happened with the SEC sell-off back in the end of 2020. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves within wave 5 down in here. Let's write that there. There's 5. 6 rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5. We go on for 7, and that's the finishing move. And we can see how far back up this thing rolled. It rolled all the way back up to nearly getting to this top over here before then going in for a very prolonged retracement in here. Right? We'll take a look at this and see how big this retracement was. I believe it was a 618 retracement. A little bit over, nearly getting to a 702 Fibonacci retracement in here, but look how long this thing lasted for. It really went on for a very long time in here. But also that the price did shift back up to near wave 6, which was a roll back up to wave 4 within wave 5, which looking on Bitcoin right here would mean that the price would still have further to go in that scenario before a very long retracement really comes in here. Another example of this is actually Bitcoin at the end of the 2018 bear market when it came in for its final capitulative moment, the crashing structure that happened down in here. What do you see? You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rolls back up to wave 4. Then we go on for our final push, right? We can even inverse the Bitcoin price chart that we're dealing with right now. We can look back to what the finishing crashing structure of Bitcoin looked like back then and see the unbelievable similarities that were happening in here. So I'm going to take everything off this screen. I'm going to take everything off this screen, and we'll just see what it looks like, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolls back up. And what happens when it finally takes out that low over there? Similar to over here, we can see it breaks through it, right? Breaks through the low, pulls back, and then it goes on for one more new high, and then it falls apart. what did we have happen down in here, right? We break through one time, just like we did back over here. We break through one time, and then we push one more time. We push one more time, then the price falls back up, and then the price falls, right? And so looking at what happened here on Bitcoin, we could see how high it actually ended up getting over here as well. I got very close to getting back to that peak over there. So if it's going to do something similar, right, you're still getting way back up over here for Bitcoin in this type of structure. And then what happens? Just like what happens on each of these things, it goes into this really long retracement, in which a really long retracement comes in here for Bitcoin, right back down into these price levels over here. So you can kind of get a look into my thought process here on what's going on with Bitcoin. There's multiple different types of corrective and crashing structures that can come. If the current price holds right now, I'm still going to be screaming run for the hills, for at least for myself, and expressing the concerns that I have for the cryptocurrency market as we go back into the retrace. But if that price level holds currently, like we did back in here, like the tweet of, 39,557, well, you know what? It will leave me to at least keep my ears open and, be receptive to the idea that Bitcoin's crash may not be as big as anticipated, right? That we would still go set a new low compared to what happened in May. But are we really going to completely break down and crumble on ourselves and go down to 13,000, 2,000, something insane? I may be more receptive to the idea that Bitcoin could find a bottom in the 20,000s instead, if the current price level held right now, and if our retrace began for Bitcoin and we started heading into a moment like this right now. I'll still be, abandoning ship at that price point at 56, 57, $58,000. But I may be more receptive to the idea that a bottom for Bitcoin could come in the somewhere in the 20,000s rather than in the teens. But we're nowhere near that right now, and it's still all about monitoring the retracement right now and what happens with the altcoin market right now for my personal exit plan. But the reason I keep pointing to this style right here for Bitcoin, like what happened in the crashing structure at the end of 2018, if Bitcoin does push up higher, right? If for some reason Bitcoin's current price structure does push itself further and we do fall into the mid to lower 30,000s right now, I'm going to be looking for what happens in every one of these structures. After you roll back up to wave 4 within wave 5, you go set a new high, and then you roll back up in here. What we see in all of these different structures repetitively is this longer retracement that comes in here, and that the price really does crash tremendously after that. We'll take us off the inverse scale. You can see that just a tremendous crash coming afterwards, pushing the price much lower. This doesn't change my thought process that a retracement will come in for Bitcoin at some point to see what happens with the altcoin market. It still points to this great retrace coming in for Bitcoin as well. It doesn't say we are going straight into some type of big mega crash right now. This says that this is just the first initial rejection from the all-time high and that the retracement is still on its way. It just says it's going to be a little while from right now, if that is the way things are to play out. Because in each of the examples that we have for this, where this type of structure is playing out, we see it pull back up into these price levels for like Bitcoin here, and like for Bitcoin here at the end of the 2018 bear market, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5, sets the bottom in. It does roll up higher in here before that ends up happening. Same thing for the XRP price chart, rolls way back up in here before the big retracement ends up happening. And even here on the gold to silver ratio, we can see how it's creeping its way back up to getting to these price levels up in here. So the big question still remains, are we going to see what typically happens in a crashing structure for Bitcoin, that the price still has further to go, which in this circumstance, a rise in the inverse price, look over here, means a reduction in the actual price before a much longer retracement can come in, as we usually do see, and as we've seen on Bitcoin before? Or do current prices hold that we have right now, like we have in similar structures previously? It would give us a little bit of a faster retrace in here, but still ultimately lead to the same thing, a bigger fallback, but potentially not as deep as originally thought. We'll just have to wait and see. And I know a lot of people would say, hey man, you're just saying up, down, sideways, you're calling whatever you want to call it, hedging. And hedging drives me crazy. I cannot stand it when, essentially a lot of the TA out there is a lot of, we're going to the moon, we're going to $200,000, but this can happen, this can happen, this can happen, we can go down, and if we go down, that's what happens. But in the end, we're going to the moon. That stuff drives me nuts. I'm giving my bigger, broader perspective of what is actually happening here on Bitcoin right now. That my anticipation for Bitcoin is that we're doing something similar to this, that we are in the first initial fall of Bitcoin. I'm waiting for a retracement to come in, and then I do expect the retracement to roll over and for Bitcoin's price to go and set even new lows. And the thing that I'm trying to figure out right now is, where can this bottom come in right now for Bitcoin? Where can the bottom be found to send us off into a retrace, which would ultimately then lead to another leg down? So that's the broader perspective. The big challenging part is figuring out where is the bottom for a retracement to start. And while this has held until this point, which is optimistic for saying a retracement could start right now, because that is identically equivalent to this move right here. The big thing we have to say is, what if it doesn't, right? What if it still breaks through it? And that's why I look at things like this to say, hey, these are the other things that typically happen in these scenarios. And for this scenario, Bitcoin would still move into the 30,000s before then retracing back into the 50,000s. But either way, none of the scenarios I see would just be some straight line down for Bitcoin. None of that is indicated by the structures that we have happening on here. Not to say it can't do it, but it's nothing that's on my radar as something that's potentially plausible or realistically probable. Everything would indicate to me a retracement back into the 50,000s before anything like that would be even remotely possible. The big question is, where does it all start from? But so far, so good on something like this. So we'll give this a couple of days to play out, see if it gets a big pop out of there. I know that the altcoins took a little bit of a plunge there with Bitcoin while it did that. So we'll see if we get an actual reversal coming out of here, taking the altcoin market up with it, but we'll just give it a couple of days to breathe to see what the market decides. But in all seriousness, right, I've been very concerned about Bitcoin in the $60,000 and that a big, massive crash for Bitcoin would start to occur. Never thinking that it'll go down in a straight line. I've been through these bear markets before. I've studied these charts like crazy. Retracements do come in for Bitcoin, but I would love to see the crashing structure get invalidated. I would love to see this price hold. I would love to see this tweet end up being right, and for us to be something and more along the lines of this structure right in here. And that, yeah, it does still show that there's likely like a year left of Bitcoin ranging in all these price levels. It does still show it going down into the 20s, but it shows that after a year or so, it would be over. I would much rather cheer for that scenario than cheer for prices to crash down to $13,000 or lower for Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin hater. I'm just doing technical analysis and charting. I'm a dude on the internet with no motive of hating Bitcoin. It's just structures, it's just technical analysis. And if I was to cheer for anything out of all the scenarios that I see likely and plausible, this is the one I would want because it's the one with the best outcome. It does still have a year of kind of torturous price action, but it's just what it is. We just wait through a whole year, and it's not as gloomy and doomy as going down to 13,000 or to 2,000 or something mad. So just know I am cheering for this to be the thing that ends up playing out, but I've got a plan in case the other things do. But it's not coming from a negative mindset or cheering against Bitcoin. I think a lot of people had that perception of me because I came like a punching bag for the Bitcoin maximalist community. And I wasn't trying to be negative Nancy's towards Bitcoin. It was really trying to give the warnings out there that, look, this is what this thing looks like it's doing. I had lots of content creators in the Bitcoin maximalist world commenting on my stuff, telling me I was wrong. And lots of these guys have now all switched bearish here in the last couple $1,000s. But look at me. I'm over here trying to find the bullish scenario for Bitcoin to revert back to the upside. It has absolutely nothing to do with me cheering against Bitcoin. I'm here rooting for Bitcoin. I'm hoping this scenario plays out and that Bitcoin doesn't have to go as low as the technical structure says that it can go if we are following a crashing structure. So come on, Bitcoin, hold this price level. I'm cheering for you. But all right, that's going to be it. That's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. I hope that you're doing well out there. If prices stay calm, I'll be taking tomorrow off. It's going to be 3 days this week, so long as the price action isn't madness. Last week it didn't pan out like that. I still put out several videos last week, and there had to be days where I'd have to put one out when I thought I was going to be taking the day off. So just, kind of have that expectation going into this week. If things are pretty calm, it likely might be a little bit spotty this week, but if there is tremendous price section, we'll come in and talk about it. But all right, that's going to be it. I'm wrapping it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do, you can check out my website over here, bcbacker.com. This is a course I put together where I deep dive into the previous Bitcoin bull runs, the previous altcoin market cycles, tying them all together, showing how they've worked in the past. Structured a lot like my YouTube channel, it's just me talking about charts. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. I try to make it very similar to what my YouTube videos are like. I talk about my personal exit plans in here, and I teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. I talk a lot about mathematics and percentages and why they're so important to me. There are some recent updates in there, and the most recent market update was there on December 31st. And you can check out all of this educational content over here on bcbacker.com. You can follow me over here on Twitter at bcbacker. And I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.